What if I told you that this story was never meant to be heard? That it was buried deep, along with those who never came back to tell it? You're about to hear a true nightmare from a campsite that was erased from every map, not because it never existed, but because someone didn't want it remembered. Before we begin, help this channel reach 1,000 subscribers. It's completely free, and your support helps keep these dark stories alive. Hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into one of the most chilling tales ever told from the woods. It was supposed to be a healing trip. After his brother's tragic accident, Liam needed a break from the noise of the city, the beeping machines, the constant replaying of guilt in his mind. That's why when he found a post on a camping forum about Camp Kenton Hollow, a forgotten forest retreat with total silence, he knew he had to go. Silence sounded like salvation. He packed light. Just a tent, some rations, a flare gun, and his old cassette recorder, the one he used as a kid to document random sounds. He figured he'd capture the chirping of birds, the rustling of wind, anything peaceful to help him sleep again. When he arrived at the edge of the hollow, the air was unnaturally still. The kind of still that makes you realize how loud your own breath is. No insects. No birds. Just dense pine trees, hanging low, almost like they were trying to hide something. There were no signs, no trails, no people. Just a narrow footpath leading into the woods, like the forest wanted to swallow him whole. He walked. Day 1. The first night was too quiet. So quiet, Liam began to understand what real silence was and how disturbing it could be. He played back his cassette recorder to ease the stillness. But there was something strange. Instead of the wind or ambient forest sounds, there was a faint, dragging noise. A sound that hadn't been there when he was recording. Like flesh scraping against bark. Followed by what sounded like a child's voice. Whispering. Backwards. He brushed it off. Maybe an old recording. Maybe the tape was faulty. But that night, as he lay in his tent, he heard something move just outside. Slowly. Heavy. Deliberate. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then it was gone. Day 2. He ventured deeper into the woods to see if he could find an animal or maybe some structure. Instead, he found an abandoned fire pit surrounded by toothpick-sized bones, stacked in perfect spirals, like ritual markings. Near the fire pit was a stone with carvings. He couldn't understand the symbols, but he swore they were slightly different every time he blinked. He pressed record. The sound of silence filled the tape. Until a breath. Not his. A wet, shallow breath, right up against the mic, followed by a whisper. "You shouldn't have come here alone." He dropped the recorder. That night, he awoke to a strange feeling, like he was being watched from under the ground. The tent was zipped shut. Yet there were muddy handprints on the inside of the fabric. Small ones. Children's hands. Dozens of them. As if they had all been reaching in while he slept. He tore out of the tent and ran until his legs collapsed. Then he heard it. Not the whisper. Not the breath. But his own voice, recorded and played back from somewhere in the trees. "I deserve this. I left him there. I let him die." Those were the exact words he'd screamed in his apartment the night his brother passed, when no one else was around. He had never recorded them. So how were they echoing in the forest? The following morning, his campsite was gone. No tent. No bag. No recorder. Just the footprints he'd made last night, now filled with thick, black mud. The trail he followed to enter? Erased. But something new was there. A wooden sign nailed into a tree, carved recently. Fresh. There is no Camp Kenton Hollow. But it remembers you. And beneath it, something had been nailed to the bark. His brother's hospital wristband. It was impossible. He screamed. He begged. He ran. But the deeper he went, the more the forest bent around him, like the trees were moving just slightly each time he turned his back. Then the voice returned. Not whispered. not recorded. It was all around him now. Trade your silence for his final recording. They found Liam's cassette recorder weeks later, buried in a hollowed-out stump near where the forest ends. The tape was intact. On it was Liam's voice. Calm. Soft. If you're hearing this, don't come looking. The silence, it lives here now. And it's always hungry. And in the background, just for a second, the sound of a second heartbeat. But slower. Not human. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. Camp Kenton Hollow may not show up on any map, but some say it still waits for new visitors. Have you ever heard of a place so cursed that even compasses refuse to work? A place where campers walk in, but leave with memories that don't belong to them? This is not your typical ghost story. There are no jump scares here. What you're about to hear is psychological, paranormal, and unlike anything you've heard around a campfire before. I should have known something was wrong when my friend Theo brought up Camp Polaris. We were all sitting around his basement, me, Theo, Kayla, and Martin, when he dropped the name like it was just another weekend getaway. It's not even on Google Maps anymore, he said, grinning. Total dead zone. No signals, no rangers, no people. Just untouched wilderness. Real silence. But I'd heard that name before. Polaris. I couldn't place where. It tickled something in the back of my brain, like a word you swear you've dreamed of but can't explain. Still, we went. Day 1, arrival. The road was cracked and overgrown. Our GPS glitched out 2 miles before we arrived. It rerouted us into a loop, then shut off entirely. The trailhead was marked by a broken wooden post with the letter E burned into it. One of the planks had nail marks, like someone tried to claw their way out of the wood. We set up camp near a lake that reflected everything too perfectly. The trees. The sky. Even us. But something was off. In the reflection, Theo wasn't smiling, even though, above the surface, he clearly was. I pointed it out. He laughed it off. But I noticed, from that moment on, he started talking just a little slower. Day 2, the shift. That morning, Kayla swore she heard someone call her name from the woods. We brushed it off as a dream. But later that day, I found her just standing by the lake. Not moving. Eyes wide. I asked what was wrong. She said, I was trying to remember where I went last night. But I don't think it was here. Her hands were dirty, like she'd been digging. Under her nails was something dark and waxy. I asked what it was. She blinked. Then said she didn't know who I was. Not what is this, or are you joking? She said, I don't know who you are. Then walked off like nothing happened. Nightfall, missing hours. We sat by the fire that night, but no one spoke. It was like we were forgetting how. Theo just stared at the flames and mumbled something over and over again. I leaned in. I don't think I came here with you. I looked at Martin. His eyes were swollen, like he'd been crying for hours. His journal, the one he always brought camping, was torn to shreds and burned at the edges. The only legible page said, Don't trust your memories. This place edits them. Day 3, who are we? I woke up with dirt in my mouth. No sleeping bag. No tent. Just lying on the ground beside the lake. Theo was gone. Martin wouldn't speak. He kept humming a tune I didn't recognize but felt like I'd known since childhood. I looked at Kayla and finally asked, What is this place? She looked at me and said, You told us to come here. Don't you remember? I didn't remember inviting anyone. I didn't even remember packing. That's when it hit me, my backpack had items I'd never owned. A carving knife. An old photograph of 4 kids, none of whom I recognized, camping by this very lake. One of them looked like me. Final night, the stranger. Martin disappeared around sunset. We heard rustling in the woods, and when we went to look, we found another tent. Not ours. It was older. Rotten canvas. Half collapsed. Inside was a notebook. On the front it said, "For whoever I become." I flipped through pages of fragmented thoughts. Voices. Descriptions of me, Kayla, and Theo, but written in different handwriting. From years ago. Some pages were signed with my name, but I hadn't written them. The last page just said, "You can't escape the edits. Once you're here, you're rewritten." The last morning, I ran. Alone. No Kayla. No Martin. No Theo. The forest looked the same in every direction. Every tree I passed had the same carving, a backward E. The lake eventually found me again, no matter how far I ran. And in its reflection, I saw something I'll never forget. Me, smiling. But I wasn't controlling it. My reflection raised a hand, waved at me, while I stood frozen. Then it said, "We like your shape. You'll do." I'm not sure who I am anymore. If you're watching this, or hearing my voice, don't come looking for Camp Polaris. Because by the time you leave, you won't be you anymore. And the version of you that stays behind? It never stops smiling. There are places in this world that don't just haunt you, they rewrite you. Have you ever had a nightmare so vivid that when you woke up, the injuries were still there? This story isn't about ghosts or legends. It's about something worse. Something you can't see. Something you bring back with you. What if the scariest part of a camping trip wasn't getting lost, but being replaced? My name is Evan, and I don't know how to start this because I'm not even sure how much of this is real anymore. It all began when my cousin Tyler invited me on a reset weekend. No phones. No internet. Just us, the forest, and a few cheap tents near a place called Blue Ash Camp, which I'd never heard of. It's just a forgotten old site my uncle mentioned. Used to be a Boy Scout place back in the 70s. Nobody goes there anymore. It was off every digital map, but somehow, Tyler had a printed trail guide. He said he'd found it in a box of his dad's old junk. The paper smelled like mold and had handwritten symbols next to the trail, like warning signs drawn by a kid. I should have said no. Day one, getting there was too easy. We hiked deep into the woods, past the usual campsites and signage. About 4 miles in, the trees began to grow so thick they muffled even our footsteps. It was strange, every now and then, I'd turn around and swear I saw an extra shadow behind us. Like someone was following just close enough to be invisible, unless you weren't paying attention. Tyler laughed it off, of course. We reached the clearing by dusk. A flat, perfect circle surrounded by crooked trees. Not one insect. No birdsong. Just the strangest quiet I've ever heard. And at the center of it all, a rusted camp bell, like the ones used to call scouts in from the woods. It rang once. We didn't touch it. The first night, the clock that didn't change. We built a small fire and set up the tents. I remember checking my watch. It was 9:12 p.m. I remember that because I checked it again hours later, and it still said 9:12 p.m. Tyler's watch said the same. His phone? Dead. Mine? Blank screen. The stars were wrong. Too many. I looked up and felt something, watching back. We both agreed to get some sleep and reset in the morning. But morning never came. Day 2, the time loop. I woke up in daylight, or something pretending to be it. But everything was exactly the same. The fire was still fresh. The embers still glowed. My watch? Still 9:12 p.m. Tyler hadn't moved from his tent. Except, he wasn't Tyler anymore. Same voice. Same face. But when he looked at me, I saw nothing behind his eyes. Like he'd forgotten who I was. Did you just get here? he asked. I laughed, thinking he was joking. But then he looked genuinely confused. You're not the last guy. Where's Sean? Who's Sean? I asked. My cousin. We got here yesterday. I wasn't supposed to be there. That night, I tried to leave. I walked back toward the trail we came from, only to circle back, again and again, to the same clearing. No matter which direction I took. Each time I returned, Tyler looked slightly different. Clothes cleaner. Eyes glassier. On the third loop, he greeted me with, "Welcome back, Sean." I ran. The sound of my own voice. On what I thought was the third morning, I heard a cassette player playing from the woods. It was my voice. Don't trust him. Don't trust yourself. This isn't a place, it's a mechanism. I found the recorder nailed to a tree, along with dozens of others. Some had notes in handwriting I recognized as mine. But I hadn't written them, not yet. One note said, "Whatever happens, don't ring the bell." So of course, the bell rang again that night. The swap. I don't know how many days passed. Or if time was even passing. Tyler, or whatever was left of him, started repeating everything I said. Word for word. Like a reflection that lagged slightly behind. Then one night, I woke up in the other tent. I smelled fire smoke and heard two voices outside. One of them was mine. I stepped out, and there I was, sitting by the fire, talking to someone else. When I screamed, neither of them reacted. When I touched my face, it wasn't mine anymore. The final morning that never came. There is no morning at Blue Ash Camp. Only loops. Only memories being pulled apart and pieced back together wrong. I found a journal today. It had my name on the cover. It ended with the words, "You were never Evan." That name was just the first one this place gave you. You've always been part of the forest. You just needed to wake up. And the last line? You will tell this story someday. And when you do, someone will come find us. Someone will bring us another mind to wear. Asterisk if you're still here, thank you. But whatever you do, don't look up Blue Ash Camp. And if you start forgetting where you've been lately, or if your reflection starts smiling too early, you might have been there already, asterisk. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers and keep these disturbing stories alive. It's free, and you'll be part of something no algorithm can erase. Until next time, stay awake, stay aware. And never, ever trust the morning at camp. Asterisk.